Hey there, welcome to the Nook of Books. Join me, Jen, every week for the latest book reviews and news. Now, stay tuned as we delve in for our very first episode. Episode 1, Women in Greek Myth, a portrayal of heroine and villainesses by Marie Campbell, publication 4th of November, 2022. A book of our favorite Greek tales focusing on the female perspective. A completely different point of view emerging from a predominantly masculine time in mythology and ancient history. It's a fast read. It's not a super long book. If you have a day free, you can definitely do it in a couple of hours. But it's also a nice one to just dip in and out of, as readability is from beginners all the way up to long-winded enthusiasts like me who are definitely in it for the long run. So I considered the fact that I've been reading Greek myth for years, and what I found super intriguing about this book is in the idea that every story has two sides, and in this case the other side of the myth is the female side. And strong female characters in history and myth are more often depicted in ways that must be handled or matched or destroyed by some other masculine figure. So this led me down the rabbit hole, and wow, I'm definitely grateful that I fell in. It's opened up doors to a few other authors, which I will name at the end, that also explore this topic of females in myth in more depth, as they have whole books dedicated to specific stories. But like I said, this book itself is a fantastic compilation of our favorite Greek tales. Now, let's do this. So, some of the best characters, well, say not best, but some of my personal favorites are going back to the primordial gods like Gaia, the goddess of earth. As you may or may not know, the Earth Mother, or Gaia, coupled with chaos, or was produced out of chaos, and birthed the other gods into existence. We also talk about the 9 muses, daughters of Zeus, the king of the gods, and the goddess of memory. The 9 muses include music, dance, hymns, lyrical poetry, epic poetry, history, astronomy, comedy, and of course, tragedy. But I like the fact that Marie Campbell has also touched upon female characters which might not be quite as well known as others, such as Medusa, in this case, Circe, daughter of Helios, the sun god, and the ocean nymph, Perse. She is a goddess of sorcery, skilled in magic of transmutation, illusion, and necromancy, and she lived on a mythical island of Gaia with her nymph companions. She comes up in the story of Odysseus. He comes to her island and she transforms all of his men into pigs. And without more divine help from a certain other god, Hermes, eventually Circe does indeed decide to spare Odysseus's men and change them back into their humanoid forms. And one of my favorite power couples, Persephone and Hades. Granted, this obviously focuses primarily on Persephone and her mother Demeter. She's the daughter of Zeus, and Demeter is the goddess of harvest. So Persephone, goddess of spring and growth, but she's also the queen of the underworld, the wife to the god Hades. And I think I love the story of Hades and Persephone. She represents life, he represents death. It's a perfect infinity loop, and I think it's absolutely fantastic that we get to learn more about her. Of course, everybody has heard of Helen of Troy. Granted, she was originally born Helen of Sparta. She is the daughter of Zeus and Leda, She was a mortal woman and the wife of the Spartan king Tyndareus. So Helen's siblings included the heroic twins Castor and Polydeuces, and the murderous Clytemnestra, her sister, who married King Agamemnon of Mycenae, who eventually goes on to invade Troy. But Helen quickly became known as the most beautiful woman in the world, and it all starts from a golden apple. Now, Medusa's story is definitely one of my absolute favorites, and even I have to admit, I thought it was really sad when she inevitably has her head chopped off. I hate that. So being able to get things from her side was amazing. So let me just give you a little bit of backstory on who Medusa was. She was one of the 3 Gorgons, daughters of the sea gods, Four Seas and Ceto, and sisters of the Graii, Echidna and Ladon. So all of Medusa's other siblings were born monsters. She was the only exception until she incurred the wrath of a certain vengeful goddess, Athena. Even though she was not a monster by birth, she had definitely had the misfortune of being turned into one of the most hideous monsters of them all. But in my opinion, I think she represents a kind of a pillar of strength. And although they say Athena released this wrath, I also think Athena gave her this gift so that no man could ever hurt her again. And she could also, in her own way, protect the rest of the world from these nasty men by turning them into stone, because none of them came to her island looking to help her or any kind of, well, let's just say kindness. It was always for their own means, or to kill the poor woman. I mean, she had already been through enough, all because Poseidon showed an interest and she said no. Tale as old as time, or in this case, Greek myth. Oh, one of the meanest ladies in Greek myth, Medea, daughter of Aeetes, king of Colchis. He was the son of the sun god Helios. Now, her mother is a little bit mix and match. Some sources say it was Lydia, one of the Oceanids, though some texts gave her mother as Hecate instead. So Medea was a powerful witch and magician, and she fell in love with Jason when he came to Colchis with the Argonauts to steal the golden fleece from her father. And, well, to say she did some nasty things is like saying water is wet. Killing her own brother, killing her own children, the list does go on. So this chick had some serious issues that she was trying to work out, and vengeance was her cup of tea. Okay, now let's move on to one of the most well-known stories in Greek myth, Pandora. Everyone always thinks Pandora's box. Now, please let me go on record to correct this oversight. I don't know at what point the mistranslation occurred, but it did. Now, Pandora was never given a box. It was more of a storage jar, what they would call epithos. And it had like a big cork on the top, like it rounded at the bottom. There was never any kind of box, square pit situation, nada. It was always a pithos. So Pandora was the first mortal woman who was formed out of clay by the gods. So the Titan Prometheus, a little bit of backstory for you, he created the human race with the help of Zeus, of course. It was Zeus's idea. But Prometheus wasn't particularly happy with the lot that we had been given by the gods, so he stole fire from the heavens. Not just any regular kind of fire, not just to keep warm, but that human, that spark that gives you creativity, ideas, thinking outside the box, problem solving, all of it. This was a godly fire. Now, Zeus being Zeus, not happy, his rule was broken. Everyone knows the story. Prometheus was then tied to a rock, and eagles tore out his liver every single day. It would regenerate, and over it would be. So, In the meantime, Zeus, obviously very angered, he commanded Hephaestus and the other gods to create the first woman, Pandora, endowing her with beauty and cunning. He then had her delivered to the brother of Prometheus, Epimetheus, as a bride. So Zeus gave Pandora this pithos, a storage jar, as a wedding gift, and instructed her to never open it. Everybody knows how that story ended, but I don't know how many know that there was this tiny little fluttering left inside when she tried to put the cork back in after all the evil had been released. But hope was still fluttering around in there. I do love the Greek tragedies. They know how to hit home. Atalanta. This chick is hardcore. She was an Arcadian heroine, a huntress, and a favorite of the goddess Artemis. So her father wanted a son. So when his wife gave birth to a daughter, he was not happy. Daddy said no, get rid of her, and she was left exposed on the side of a cliff for the animals to have their way with. Not happy. But little did he know that a she-bear who had recently lost a cub found Atalanta and raised her until she was found by hunters and grew up to be this intense, crazy, awesome huntress, and even took part in Jason's quest for the Golden Fleece. I believe she was the only female amongst the Argonauts, other than, of course, Medea for a very short time. But Atalanta was the only female part of the Argonauts in the capacity as an equal to the other soldiers and heroes that were on that ship, and that included, for a time, Heracles. And my last character shout out from this book is actually a group of characters, really, and that is the Amazonian warriors. They were a race of female warriors in Greek mythology. They dwelled in the region of what today would be the Ukraine. So two of the best known Amazon queens were Penthesilea, who took part in the Trojan War, and her sister Hippolyta, who was the owner of the magical girdle given to her by the war god Ares. Now, Hercules was sent by Eurystheus, the king of Mycenae at the time, Tiryns, and Argos, on the 9th of his celebrated 12 labors to fetch the girdle of the Amazon queen Hippolyta. Now, these were just a select few of the vast amounts of female characters that Marie Campbell touches on in Women in Greek Myth. But I will share with you a few of my favorite quotes. Chapter 2, Virgins and Lovers, pages 20 to 21, from Women in Greek Myth by Marie Campbell. Despite her sometimes dubious morality, she seems to be the only goddess that acts like a Greek male god would act, taking multiple lovers, cheating on her partner, etc. Her status as the goddess of love gives her a special position among the pantheon. Where other goddesses are usually either virgins or wives that are cheated on, Aphrodite is a free-loving woman. Chapter 4, Tragic Queens and Princesses, pages 50 to 51. She spat and snarled at him, bemoaning her fate. She said that nothing could harm her now that she had lost the most precious things she had in life. But her life as Odysseus's slave and possibly concubine could still get far worse. So the gods, merciful at last, turned her into a dog so that she could escape a fate worse than death, being forced to serve the killers of her children. In a fashion, this transformation is a symbolic way to depict how grief changes a person beyond recognition, almost stripping them of their humanity. And the final sneak peek comes from Chapter 6, True Heroines, page 93. When Clytemnestra returned to the house, Aegisthus was already dead, and Orestes was waiting for her with a bloodied knife. At the last moment, Orestes wavered. He didn't want to kill his mother, but Electra, who at this point had Clytemnestra in a firm grasp, urged him to go on and fulfill the revenge. Had to leave you with a little bit of a cliffhanger there. Just a few of my favorite quotes from this amazing book, which I would totally recommend to any lover of myth, but also to any lover of fantasy novels. Again, it is a quick read, but I did really enjoy it. I would totally read it again. My favorite part has got to be from the point of Hecuba, the Queen of Troy. You heard her in my second quote. I think it is an amazing perspective. Everyone knows about the Battle of Troy. Everyone can name off the key heroes like Hector and Achilles, Agamemnon, all of it, Helen, but the people who get forgotten in that story, like the daughter of Agamemnon, Electra, her going after her mother for that revenge, or even Cassandra, another daughter of Hecuba, the Queen of Troy, who is doomed to be ignored, even though she had the gift of prophecy. Now, the only thing I would, not really a criticism, but I think more just a matter of preference, I think it would have been nice if Marie Campbell had fleshed it out just a little bit more, just to create a bit more backstory for readers who don't already have a vague picture of the kind of setup of the gods and have a reasonable knowledge of like the heroes and the backstory that accompanies everything that before it hits the doorstep of the female characters. I do feel it's a little choppy there, but that would be my only complaint. And as I said, it is a matter of preference. I am sure there are plenty of people who will love it exactly the way it is. So for all of you fantastic people who are interested in reading this book, it is available in hardback, paperback, ebook, and for you listeners, audiobook as well. I'm definitely an audiobook connoisseur. My favorite books I always end up buying in hardback, and then I read it the old-fashioned way. So when it comes to my ratings, I would give this a solid 3 out of 5 stars, only because I prefer a little bit more flesh. It's just my opinion. If you enjoy this book, which I really hope you do, there are 6 pieces to this mythology collection. There's one for Norse mythology, Egyptian mythology, Celtic mythology, Roman mythology, and Greek mythology as a whole. But I thought just for fun, this time I would focus on the ladies in myth. The strong, the evil, the cunning, the fantastical in every way. Girl power. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. There will be a new one out every single week, every Friday evening. Do check for the next episode. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next time on the Nook of Books.